welcome to my show. I'm your host, Marie-Therese Bolden. Welcome to Food for Therapy, the show that combines my training and specialties of psychotherapy and counseling with my love of food and hosting and culture. And for today's topic, we belong to the most exclusive group on the planet, and that group is called Motherhood. And I have one of my favorite people in the world, my dearest friend for a lifetime, Tania Carbone, bespoke master tailor and creative. Welcome to my home, T.
Thank you for having me, Therese.
Oh,
welcome to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. So what we've got on the menu today, because we don't often take the time to eat something special. And you told me that with your change and going through menopause, that you know, there's certain things you can't eat. So I thought I'd make my chili tiger prawn and coriander salad. So please eat up. It's got beautiful mango in it as well.
It looks absolutely delicious.
Yes, and so the recipe for this will be on our social media, so stay tuned for that. But today's topic is a big one. I wanted to talk about what it means to be a mum. So, you know, it can also be quite a contentious topic as well. You know, women are often, you know, comparing themselves to other women and also castigating each other over different styles of motherhood. And I wanted this to be a safe space where we could talk about our own styles of motherhood and how different they are. Not necessarily better or worse, just different.
Absolutely.
How we've raised our children, the challenges that we've faced in raising our children, being motherless daughters and not having our mothers to help us because they're both passed on. And so I wanted to start by asking you, what do you think your style of motherhood is?
Oh, I think my style of motherhood is nurturing and not strict. I feel that, you know, I have a friendship with my daughter and it is unique in its own way. And
how old is your daughter? Well, of course I know.
Yes, you do. Yes. 20.
She's 20.
She's 20. Love of my life.
Yes.
Challenging sometimes, as all motherhood is.
All children are, darling.
Absolutely.
Children are.
But I think we, you know, like she would say to me, I can be mean and nice at the same time, but I'm certainly not strict.
Okay. Which, I mean, if you'd asked my own children, my son and my daughter, they would probably tell you that I was probably more of a stricter mother. I am or was very regimented, very firm but fair, and very almost kind of militant in this, not militant in the style of organisation, because I'm very organised and I've needed to be that way, but also had very strong boundaries for my children so that they always knew that they were loved. But also we tend to emulate the styles of motherhood that we had with our own mothers if we like them. And obviously there were certain things about my mother's motherhood style that I left out. So what do you think about that? Do you think you mimicked your mum's style of motherhood?
I think maybe a little bit, but not all entirely. Obviously, you know, she passed away when, you know, we don't have our mums. And I don't think I really had a role model to show me a style of mothering. She was strict, but not always. Being the last child, you know, the baby.
Right, so you got away with a lot more.
Yeah, it was almost like, okay, I just sort of floated in to, you know, that fourth child, and I did get away with a lot of things. So I didn't, that's maybe where I got my non-strictness with.
Right, so you felt like she was a lot more relaxed by the time she got to you.
A lot more relaxed, absolutely. I think it was just, maybe she was like already exhausted by then. So,
but maybe also too that you were also a rebel.
I was a rebel.
You were.
That's a secret, but you know
I
was.
You definitely were, and you probably wore her down.
Yeah, I probably did.
You wore her down.
Yes, we could tell some stories about that.
But I think, you know,
the plain one. There's
just so many stories that we could tell. But I think, you know, I mean, my children now, Cairo's 25 and my son, you know, he's going on to 28. And so it seems like a lifetime ago that I had them, but I don't remember my life without them. And I'm so in love with them still. Like I'm just so in love with my children. They are a blessing for me. And, you know, oftentimes we as parents think that we're here to teach them, but I always remember this poem from one of my favourite poets, Khalil Gibran, who is a philosopher and a poet. And the poem is about the fact that our children come through us, not from us, you know, and that we are not here to give them our thoughts because they have their own thoughts and they are the children of tomorrow. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but that the poem really stayed with me. It stayed with me because I have a very kind of, as you know, very kind of spiritual life, and I don't like to use the word spiritual because I feel like it's hijacked sometimes, but that is how I live my life, as you know. And you know, I raised them with that in the forefront of my mind always, that I was here as a guardian for them and to make them feel loved and to make them feel safe. But I wasn't in charge of what they wanted to do, which is very different to how my mother mothered us. And, you know, my mother, in my culture, you were either educated or you got married.
That's right.
And you weren't free to be your creative self. You weren't free to explore the things that you wanted to explore. Whereas I think my former husband and I have done a lot differently with our children, you know. So that's really been at the forefront of my mind throughout my whole life when I mother them. And I still tell them, you're still my babies and I'm here to protect you. That's the one thing I'll never stop doing is protecting you.
I think as mothers, we will always protect our children. They will always be our babies. We will always try to guide them, be their guardians, and also just always want to make sure that they're okay and they're well.
Yeah, but it's also, you know, I mean, going back to when I had them, I mean, I remember, you know, when I had my son, when I had Jonah, that I had just gone through years before that of being depressed after mum's death. And, you know, the knowledge that I was about to be a mum was
I remember that clearly.
So beautiful for me. He was a blessing in so many ways. And for me, I was so at peace in that point of my life. I remember thinking, you know, I would put him to my breast and he was 4 hourly to a T he would feed and my milk would come to the surface, and we were so in sync with each other. And he would look up at me and coo, and I was just so in love with him. And he was so peaceful and so easy. Remember when I used to bring him around?
I remember when you told me, I think we were walking down Chapel Street and you were like, oh, I'm pregnant, and you were glowing and you were in a happy place. And yeah, I do remember that.
It was such a beautiful time for me. And obviously I didn't know what would happen, you know, because I didn't have mum, didn't have anything to compare it to. But I just remember God giving me this blessing and feeling so at peace and so natural with him as a first-time mum. So I truly felt blessed that he was the first child, because it was really kind of this symbiosis that we had. And for 18 months, I mean, I've nursed him till 18 months, and the little minx, he started biting me, and I couldn't, you know, I couldn't feed him anymore. But I was just really happy in that space of just taking care of him. You know, what about you?
I remember when I was pregnant with Dakota, and I was extremely happy as well. And great easy birth. It was easy.
I know, you lucky thing. Yeah,
very easy. Like, you know, 45 minutes, no drugs, no stitches. But I do feel that my mother from above was guiding me through that, and her force was definitely in there, carrying that through for me. It was very, very easy. Absolutely loved it. And then she was not a great sleeper.
I remember that. Yeah. I mean, you and I, we've been, I mean, we've experienced births, deaths and marriages and children. And I vividly remember being at the pools with both the kids, and you calling me in a state of panic, telling me, I don't know what to do. She won't sleep.
Oh, sleepless nights.
And by that stage, I had Cairo, my second child, my daughter, and she had colic and she had reflux, and I had mastitis and I had postpartum. And I just said to you, throw out what they're telling you. You're her mother. You're in sync with her. I elevated the bed for my child. I flipped her on a tummy because she had reflux. And that was the first time she went to sleep, you know. So we were giving each other these that we were
The
supporting.
help.
Yeah.
The advice that, or the assistance that we didn't receive because both of our parents, both of our mothers not here,
Yeah.
and generally just not even grandmothers to be there to assist us.
Yeah.
But I remember putting Coda on, like elevating the at the time they were called the yellow pages.
Yeah, putting it under the mattress.
Under the mattress to elevate her. And then she did sleep a little bit, and then that was it. But that went on for a little while. But generally,
I know, but it's a funny kind of time. Going back to before I had Cairo, it was probably, like I said, 18 months of just sheer bliss, total contentment that you want it to last forever when you're in that state of bliss. And of course it doesn't last forever, because then I started thinking to myself, I'll never forget, I made a promise to myself that once I had children, I would even iron their underwear, right? So here I was.
Very high expectation.
Yeah, I was. Very high expectations of myself. 2 years down the track, I was ironing at an iron board, ironing his cute little undies. And I thought to myself, this cannot be the extent of my life. This can't be the only thing I do in my life.
Is this all there is?
Is this all there is? It was really an epiphany. And by the time I got pregnant and had Cairo, I realized that, aside from all the trauma of having her naturally, couldn't have an epidural because I was already in active labor. She was 10 pounds and I had an episiotomy, and I had 3rd-degree tears, couldn't sit, I couldn't cough.
Not in a good state.
Then I had mastitis, which is milk being engorged. Yeah. Then I had postpartum with her. So it was the polar opposite experience of what I had with Jonah. And I begged and pleaded with Tresillian at the time to let me in, because I was averaging 2 hours of sleep a night. And I wished that time away, T. I wished it away because it was so difficult. It was so difficult having a 2-year-old. It was so difficult having a newborn. That was so challenging. And of course, at the time, their father, God bless him, he was traveling, as you know, because he's an athlete and he's traveling and he had to do what he had to do.
And we felt alone. There was no other extra support. And I feel that, that was the most difficult point.
For you, was it?
100% challenging.
Yeah.
Because again,
how did you get through it? How did you, because I was in Sydney, you were in Melbourne.
That's right. We were in 2 different states. Just, I think it was like zombie land. I felt at the beginning, the no sleep, obviously
it's
former husband being an athlete as well, being away.
The no sleep is grueling.
The exhaustion, and you just push through it. You just think, I'm going to get through this.
Well, that's it. People say to me, did you take medication for postpartum? Medication. I had a child that would not sleep. The only time she would give me some respite is if she laid on my chest and she could hear my heartbeat. And God bless her, she had reflux, she had colic, she screamed the whole time.
That was Dakota.
My breasts were engorged with milk, but she wasn't getting any nutrient because I was so anxious and depressed. And
I think
somehow I just got through it. I don't know how I did it, but I just did.
I think as we do internally, you and I both, and like many other mums out there, we find the strength. We dig deep and we find that strength and we think, okay, we can do this.
It was just survival.
And we, on the outside, we looked like we were so perfect and like we were okay. But I know as a fact that deep down, I was just a zombie, no sleep, until it got better. But I think then as well, there wasn't as much support as there is now.
There's always challenges at every stage of motherhood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, every stage.
Every stage there's challenges. But I feel like that, I remember going to the doctors, my GP in Sydney, and telling him, she's not sleeping, there's something wrong with her. And he said to me, there's nothing wrong with her. And I burst into tears and said, well, you take her home and you see how it is, And he gave me my Lanta. And he's told me to give it to her, which is for reflux, every few hours. And I put her on a tummy and I elevated that bed with the phone books. And she slept from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. That was the first time. And I didn't sleep because I was running into the room checking she was okay. But it was a really harrowing grueling time. And I'll never forget Jonah. We went on a picnic at that
I
stage.
think you remember told me that this.
Yeah. And he never complained about anything.
He was the
but
easy baby.
On this day, I said to him, we're going on a picnic, me, you, and Cairo today. We're going to the park. And he looked at me. She would have been about 6-8 weeks by that stage. And he was about two and a bit. And he looked at me and he said, Mummy, can we cut Cairo's head off today?
I remember that.
He'd had enough.
He wanted all the attention.
He'd had enough. And I started crying and I hugged him and I thought, oh, my God, all my energy's been focused on trying to take care of her. And, you know, I wasn't giving him the same attention. And it's still, that guilt is real.
Yeah. I think, we carry guilt and we think we should have done things a little differently. But at the time, in hindsight, we didn't really know. We were just surviving.
Well, you do the best with what you've got.
With our resources.
Yeah.
And when you don't have the support, which is not having our mothers and not having our grandmothers, there is nowhere, you know, and with former husbands both being athletes who were not there.
Because they have to be, because they have to
travel. They have to do
their
things.
And I mean, you know, their father was wonderful. He's a wonderful father. But he had to work.
That's right. That's right. Like Dakota's father as well. The thing is, for us, sometimes I think I would have done things differently as well. I don't know how many things, but definitely half of the things I would have done differently. Like I would have taken more rests. I would have, you know, seeked out more support.
I know.
And reached out to family.
Yeah, I was really prideful. And
so was I.
I took that from my mother, that you just suck it up and you get on. But pride it's in the Bible, it's a sin. Not that I'm religious, but
you try to be perfect.
The reason that
perfection.
It makes you seem impervious. It makes you seem like nothing is penetrating. You know, it makes you seem like you've got it all under control, when in fact you're dying inside.
That's right. Oh yeah.
But because my mother was a perfectionist and then I inherited that from her, and I had this,
you felt guilty.
Well, I had this you know everything has to be orderly. Like there's a thing where if you want to know the type of person that you're dealing with, watch them when there's stress, watch them when there's pressure. And for me, when there's stress, everything has to be organized, which then creates a bigger stress.
Almost like an OCD.
Yes. Yeah. It creates an even bigger stress because you don't have the energy or the resources to be able to do that,
and yet overwhelmed.
You still need to keep everything. So it was I would change that, definitely.
And you became overwhelmed. Like I think at some point of this lovely, crazy, soul-giving and soul-sucking like thing of motherhood.
Yeah.
I feel that along the way, you know, this is delicious. The prawns.
It's so good.
Oh, are they chili? These ones? Chili prawns coriander. And mango.
It's so good.
Absolutely delicious. You know, I think if we did things differently. Like I know if I did some things differently, and
what would you do differently?
Because I was a bit of a perfectionist as well. Obviously, being a creative, you know, you want things in place, but you couldn't do everything, you know. And I think then I literally had a breakdown at the end of it. You know, I think there was a few months there where I just thought, that's it. You know, I can't do everything. You know, can't like run a business and be perfect and just do all those things.
Something will suffer, and that something ends up being your health.
You couldn't have said that any better. It's you.
It's you.
It's you that suffers.
Yeah.
And everyone around you thinks that everything's okay.
Yes, yes.
And obviously, this is 2023. Things are different to when it was early, like, 2000s, late 90s for us. But yeah, there was just nothing. There was no support, So, but I think our children are amazing. Our children.
I can't wait for my children to have, have
like,
give me grandchildren.
I mean,
honestly,
Dakota, Cara, Jonah, all amazing. I mean, they've done so well, and
they are. But
kind people.
Oh, look, my greatest accomplishment is definitely not just raising my children, but my greatest accomplishment is that they are really solid, beautiful, and when I say beautiful, I mean because beauty is as beauty does.
Mm-hmm.
They're beautiful human beings.
Yeah, inside the soul.
Yeah.
They're very good, you know.
And
nice.
it's just, they're very different, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
One's an introvert, and Jonah's more like me. He's an introverted extrovert. Kyra's very introverted. But they're just really good people, and I love being around them now, you know.
Me too. It's like, I think we've discussed this before, like Dakota, you know, and like, you know, your kids, they don't have their grandparents, or they haven't had that, you know, we have had our mums, but they haven't really had their grandparents there. So the way they love others as well, you know, which comes obviously from how we've been with them. And sometimes I think we just did an amazing job, you know. Like, I don't think mums give themselves enough credit sometimes.
No, they don't. There's always that inner critic, that self-doubt.
That we're not enough. But I think...
And it's other women. It's always other women, T. And I, you know, it probably is, you know, a part and parcel with getting older as well, is that you do tend to get a lot wiser, is that I learned that I would never take advice from someone I wouldn't take criticism from. So if someone was giving me unsolicited advice, which never really happened often because people knew the boundaries with me, is that I just wouldn't take it on board. But I do recall one time, and that was later, when I recognized that, really recognized that I was a better mother when I was working.
Yeah, because that was filling your mind with a creative outlet.
I will never forget. I went to one mother's group, and I heard them talk about the size of nappies they were using, and I thought, I just want to put a fork in my eye right now. I will never come back here again. No disrespect to any woman that wants to be in a mother's group. Each to his own. It was not for me.
Yeah.
I needed mental stimulation, and not mental stimulation talking about nappies and bibs and colic. I didn't need that. I needed some kind of mental stimulation.
Adult stimulation.
Adult. Creativity, cerebral. And I think once I realised that, that made me feel a lot better. Because there's a pressure on us, you know, especially early on. Like I had Jonah at 26 and then Cairo at 28. There's a pressure to live up to a standard that maybe your mother did or my mother did. My mother was a very different mother to me. All she ever wanted to do was be at home because she had to work. Yeah. That's all she wanted to do, aside from wanting to be educated. But I wasn't the opposite. I needed the mental stimulation. I needed to be doing my own thing. Then I could be a better mother.
Yeah. I feel the same, like, because obviously I was still doing the business and other things, but then, you don't realize what the shift is. So when you actually do have your own, you know, avenue of an outlet of creativity that you like to do, all of a sudden you're, you know, like you've got this, you know, these newborns, children, and you're thinking, oh, you just so desperately want to find the outlet, you know, and that's what happens. So you sort of have love and resentment. If that's sort of, well, that's how I felt.
Not resentment, like, it's
I loved it, but then I thought, what about me? You know, like you want some you know, as like I think all mothers need that. And it felt
but
like
we're not taught that.
We're not taught that.
What we're taught from a young age is that the best mothers are self-sacrificing. And I had that in my own mother.
Yes.
I mean, she was beaten to a pulp. She was in a domestic violent relationship. All she wanted to do was take care of us and protect us. And she had to forego all of her own needs for the sake of ours. I had lived that. I had that as an example. So I felt like I was, because I would constantly compare myself to her, constantly failing.
Yeah. And I think we all, like you said, I mean, you know, obviously with your background and my background, I think there comes, you know, I'm Egyptian, you know, I'm Italian. There comes then as well, there comes a standard that, oh, you have to do this, you know, you have to do that. And you do become judged. And then like when, you know, there's a bit of shame there if you don't
subscribe to that.
Like if you don't do that, you know, like you can do everything, but
absolutely.
No, nobody can do everything. No mother can do everything. no human can do everything,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I felt that was like a big thing.
Yeah.
And if we were able, well, I feel that if I was able to open up then and say, look, you know, I can't do this, this, and that, and reach out for that extra little bit of support as, you know, as a mother, then, you know, it would be maybe
embarrassing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You know, that's right. That's the word. Like,
It's embarrassing,
because
isn't it?
you're meant to be this perfect
I know.
thing.
It's
You're
hard.
meant to look amazing.
It's hard,
you
isn't
know,
it?
you're meant to like yeah, you know, you're meant to look amazing. You're meant to do everything. You're meant to, but really that is so not achievable.
Well, it's not achievable because
You have a mental breakdown.
Well, it does, and I
Yeah.
did. I had
Yeah.
a few of those, you know, after my mother's death, and then again with postpartum, and then, you know, menopause.
Yeah.
That's a whole different set of
Menopause.
that's a whole different
Uh-huh.
set of challenges. But I think, you know, like I said, I realized what I wanted to do, and that was that I wanted to go back and do my postgraduate. That was really important to me, to go back and study again. But also I was working as well, and that was really good stimulation for me. But there was also that outside chatter and judgment. And even though, you know, I lived in a different state, and you remember this.
I do remember.
And I was, you know, working on pitching this show.
That's right.
I remember someone who I used to call a friend saying to me that I was failing as a mother, that you shouldn't be doing this. You should be at home with your children. And, you know, think about how you felt when your mother died. And I said, I'm sorry, what? My mother had breast cancer. Why you can? I'm confused. And she said,
"This was someone that you had trusted as well."
Yeah, yeah. And it came, and I said to her, "Listen, thank God that you're not the judge in the court of motherhood, because you would have sent me to death." But I realized at that moment that I wasn't going to stop being who I was. As harsh as her criticism was, I wasn't going to stop being who I was, because that would mean that I wasn't self-actualizing. That would mean that I wasn't being myself. And for people that do sacrifice themselves for the sake of a relationship, or for the sake of a child, or for the sake of whoever, you're heading down the road to oblivion.
Well, maybe, you know, as bad as that conversation was, that was your pivot point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from it, you know, but I also realised that this particular person had a very narrow kind of idea and construct of what motherhood
should be.
This particular person didn't really have that much experience in the way of life either. You know, she came from a very secure home where there was, you know, 1% of the world's population, where she grows up in a loving family. They don't have those challenges. Then she goes on to marry, you know, the person that she wanted to. And yet
not a lot of trauma there, not a lot of
trauma. And yet there seemed to be this judgment on my life and who I was. And there seemed to be, you know, these recriminations about the type of motherhood that I was espousing to. And this same person also looked at me with envy and saying, I want your life. You want my life.
Yeah.
You know how
traumatized. Yeah.
You know, I was, you know how challenging my life has been. By the same token, I've had
joy as well.
I'm blessed.
I think
touch wood, I am blessed. I do know that.
Yeah.
But to be saying that to me, it was just very, very unnerving and very disorienting for me as well. But, you know, that's what I mean by we shouldn't take advice from anyone. We shouldn't take criticism from someone we wouldn't take advice from. Yeah.
I agree.
But it's always, we're continuously evolving, you know?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. We change, like, you know, we're not the same mother we were, like, I don't know, a few years ago, then to a few years ago back. Like I said, we always say, well, like I say, every year of being a mother from like day dot, we are different. Like we do something differently. I do something differently every year. We're not the same person. We grow, we evolve. And I think sometimes
we
us
have
mums
to, because you
forget
would
we're humans. We forget we're humans.
I am definitely a lot kinder to myself.
Yes.
I'm definitely a lot more patient with myself. And I remind myself that, you know, that analogy of being on a plane is, if the plane's going down and you need oxygen, you need to give yourself oxygen first before you can take care of others, your children and others. It's the same analogy.
And if only you gave yourself that advice,
I know.
then,
I know.
you know, that's the thing. Like, I guess that's what they say, you know, life is like a never ending learning, you know, experience.
If you choose, because it's all about choice.
Yeah.
It's all about what we choose.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people that choose not to grow and evolve and they stagnate, and you can see it in them.
Yeah. And things become a little empty. But no, being a mother or motherhood generally is certainly the most rewarding. It's amazing. And, you know, it has had its challenges, but at the end of the day, it's the most amazing experience.
Yeah, I think today, like, I mean, you know, with today's resources and today's information and today's support groups, maybe I would have been a different mother. But, you know, the challenges that I was experiencing back then, and also too, when I had my son, I really felt cheated because I had a cesarean, and I remember telling you that.
You did.
I had a cesarean, and it was an elective cesarean because he was breech, and he had the cord around his neck, and I felt cheated as a woman. I felt like I hadn't completed what I was supposed to do. Yeah, as a woman. And my doctor at the time said, Therese, you have big children, and I have a condition with a heart-shaped uterus where you bleed through the pregnancy, so it's dangerous. I don't see you ever having a normal vaginal birth because your babies are big. So I just, when I got pregnant with Cairo, I was like, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to have a cesarean as long as the baby's healthy. Anyway, lo and behold, I got my wish, as I always do.
Natural birth.
I had a natural birth. It was too late. I couldn't have any drugs. I couldn't have an epidural.
No.
And I was screaming and pleading to high heaven that I was dying.
Like, please, die. Lord, help me.
And a midwife that's telling me, they all say that, don't worry about it, basically. And
you're just
out pops my 10-pound baby girl. And I was so traumatized. I mean, I was traumatized because I didn't expect it. I was traumatized by the actual birth itself because I wasn't pushing in the way that they wanted me to, and she got a mirror and showed me to help me get her and to look and to get her out. I was traumatized by the pain of it and the fact that she was colicky and reflux, and then I got mastitis. I couldn't sit down.
It wasn't what you were expecting.
It was not. No, it wasn't what I was expecting. Excuse me, but I got my wish.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was
wanted
blessed.
A natural birth.
I wanted a natural birth, and it was so fitting that she was a girl, and I got to experience that with her. And you know, that's why you got to be careful what you wish for. Really,
yeah, you always get what you wish for.
You just got to be careful what you wish for. But it's such a beautiful. Like, I feel honoured to be their mother. I get emotional when I think about it. I feel honoured to be their mother because I really do believe that before they came into the world, they chose me. And so, but because of what I could learn from them, you know, and I think that that's what motherhood for me is about keeping them safe, keeping them contained, giving them love, unconditional love. But also you have to be open to what you learn from your children. And a lot of parents don't, they think the opposite. You know?
Yeah, I think they teach us a lot. You know, they definitely choose us. And they teach us a lot. Like, Dakota's just taught me so much. And just...
Like what? What have you learned from
just so many different things. Like, just, you know, the way she sees things in the world, you know. Whereas, you know, maybe when I would have seen something else, she'll like have a different definition of what something should be, and then just learn from them, because they are like, you know, they're different, you know, they're not from our generation. I mean, they, you know, she has me as a mum, you know, and so she just different things, you know, different experiences, different things, and she just teaches me something new every day.
Yeah, both of mine have taught. I mean, Jonah's incredibly spiritual, so we've always had that kind of spiritual affinity. It's just that knowing that there's something else. We've both known. And I've always felt like I knew him in a past life. Always felt that from the time I saw his gorgeous little face. And I learned from them because they both, God bless them both, they both had dreams of, achieving at the highest level. One in elite sport, and Cairo wanted to be a model from a very young age. That you can actualize what you want.
Absolutely.
And you can absolutely manifest what you want. You just need to focus on it. Because whatever we focus on becomes our experience. It becomes our experience. So whether you choose to focus on something good or something bad, or however you want to see it, whatever you focus on becomes your experience. And, Jonah, when he was drafted into the NBA, said that, I always knew that I would play in the NBA. I always had that feeling. I always knew that. And he always could see himself. He says, I couldn't see the way that I would get to the NBA because he went to Serbia before he got to the NBA and to Israel, but he certainly knew that he would get there. And the same with Cairo. So I've learned to just relax with Cairo. Like Cairo's taught me just to relax. She's very, very witty and very funny. For those,
she is funny.
Yeah. For those that have the good fortune of actually getting to know my daughter, because she is an amazing human being. If you get to know her really well, she's an incredibly intelligent, funny person. And Jonah is in his own way as well. I just love being around them.
Yeah, me too. I love being around Dakota as well. And she's funny.
She's funny. She's so creative.
Yeah.
She's really creative.
She's very intelligent.
Yeah.
And she's on her journey now to do her
Well, I see her going to
opportunities.
Juilliard. I definitely see her going to Juilliard. I've always seen that in her.
Yeah. And, pursuing her, wants to be an actress, and, she'll get there. She's very creative.
So stay tuned for our next episode in my chat with Tania, where we talk about boundaries and the importance of having boundaries with our children. I'm Therese Bolden, signing off for now. I'll see you next time on Food for Therapy.